Welcome to Mind Tricks Radio, where we'll explore contemporary topics in psychology through interviewing creative and innovative thinkers in the field. I'm your host, Dr. Aaron Kaplan. Thanks for tuning in. So today I'm going to try something a little bit different from what I've done in other podcasts, interviews with guests and solo podcast episodes that I've done. I am inviting my good friend and colleague back, Dr. Tyler Ralston, who has actually been a guest on the podcast a few times. He actually, I think, you were the guinea pig for my very first podcast episode, number 1, right, Tyler?
Yeah.
That was on unwarranted guilt.
Yeah.
And that was really a popular episode. And then I had you back a couple more times. We did red flags of relationships.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a third one too? Take the elephant.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think those last two were maybe during the pandemic, so a couple years ago. Yeah.
A couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
So you did that in a very interesting episode talking about your experience with the Tyke the elephant, which was the elephant that broke loose from the circus here in Hawaii, and you had experienced that firsthand.
Right.
So those were really fun and popular episodes, and so I thought I would have Dr. Tyler back on for us to have some interesting conversations about some concepts in psychology that would be fun and educational. And welcome back. It's great.
Thanks.
It's great to have you.
Yeah,
back
awesome.
here.
I'm looking forward to chatting. It's always fun.
Yeah, good. So we came up with some topics, and the first one I thought we could spend our time today talking about is this concept of psychological flexibility. And that sounds like it could be kind of like a vague sort of topic area, but I know there's some real specifics to it that are very relevant for people and how they live their lives, and also adaptability to and success in therapy. I know it's been applied to that quite a bit too as a topic. But let's talk about that. So Tyler, just in a nutshell, like how would you describe the concept of psychological flexibility?
Yeah, well, in a nutshell, I would say that it is something that's made up of three different skills. Mm-hmm. That when people develop these skills in the process of therapy, they tend to do a lot better with mm-hmm. therapeutic outcomes. Like in therapy, they do well, you know?
Right. And what are those three skills?
Those three skills are and there's different words for them, but generally speaking, increasing awareness in the present moment, getting really, really good at that, awareness of all kinds of things, but particularly one's own thoughts and feelings. That would be one of the skills. The second skill is this idea of like an openness or a willingness to experience uncomfortable thoughts and feelings, unpleasant emotions, unpleasant sensations, mentally and emotionally particularly, without having to push them away before getting on with life and what one's doing. And then the third skill, there's different names for it also, but it's basically like this sort of valued engagement or values engagement. And that basically is just like, getting on with your goals and what you value in life, regardless if you ever reach those goals, but just continuing to head in that direction without having to stop in order to do something else to escape or get relief from unpleasant thoughts and feelings.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so awareness of the present moment, openness and willingness to experience discomfort, and valued engagement or acting in alignment with your values. And so you're saying those are the three components of psychological flexibility. Yeah. And these have been studied, right, in research. Yeah. Yeah. I want to dig a little bit into that. I know you're probably a lot more familiar with the research than I am, but this is objectively, has been studied and found to be really important for people's ability to change and to do well. And so those three components you were talking about, I want to dive deeper into them a little bit more later. But just to begin with, tell us a little bit about some of this research that's been done on psychological flexibility and these components that make it so compelling.
Yeah. Well, historically, there's been a lot of times when researchers have looked into like when therapy is successful, what are the active ingredients that make good outcomes for people when they come in for help with anxieties or depression or a lot of these common kinds of things. And the research has shown over the years that there are many active ingredients, hundreds even of active ingredients. It really depends on the person, their circumstance, what's going on, but they're pretty well-known things, and they're common things that psychologists will often teach and apply. And then more recently, I think it was around 2018, Stephen Hayes, very famous researcher and clinician, has contributed a lot to the field of psychology. He and some of his colleagues were kind of sitting around asking the same question again, because it's good to ask periodically. Like when new things have come out. Well, let's look again. Let's see what are the active ingredients these days. And they did a really big study, and it was interesting. It was actually huge. They gathered, I think it was in the range of about 50 colleagues, and they identified over 54,000 studies, peer-reviewed. I think they're peer-reviewed, mediational studies that were good science on it. They identified those and read through them all. Well, I mean, that's a lot of studies to read through.
So and that would be called like a meta-analysis?
It was mediational studies. So looking at basically mediating variables in studies and what is working.
Okay.
And then they switched them all amongst each other and reread through them again. And they noticed, or they found, like, basically what's always been found, that there's lots of active ingredients depending on what's going on for the person. But the interesting thing in his study is that they were able to identify this sort of cluster of these three skills I think they coined the term psychological flexibility, that, when they do this kind of thing, they're not only looking at what are the active ingredients, but actually sort of the strength of the active ingredients. And they were able to identify that this cluster of these three skills, which make up psychological flexibility, were just head and shoulders more important and valuable as an active ingredient than pretty much anything else. And they're not going to solve it all for people, but massively important to the degree of, I think it was in the range of about 55% of the change that people make could be attributed to psychological flexibility, which is incredible. It's just massive.
So let me make sure I understand this then. So about 50 to 55% of the variance of success in therapy, they attributed to this concept that they called psychological flexibility. And in that were three factors, those three ones that you were talking about. So if you took those three and you lumped them together and said these are all parts of psychological flexibility, that would account for almost 50% of
over 50%.
Outcome of therapy. So that's pretty amazing. Like, that's a very robust finding and very significant.
Yeah, it's massive. And yeah, you're right. It's just huge. Again, it's not necessarily going to solve everything, but if you think about important ingredients, I mean, that is like kind of the biggest thing going in psychology for this, and then there's other skills and tools, of course, that can be added to the recipe to make success. But it's really, really important for clients or patients to develop skills in these areas through the process of therapy and then practicing between sessions and things like that.
Right.
Really
so
important.
I mean, I assume that presumably we're not just concerned about psychological flexibility as a predictor of how people will do in therapy, but psychological flexibility as the skills that would be just sort of good for a person to do well in life, and that's showing up as a predictor in psychotherapy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
totally.
Let's dig into these a little bit more, the three components, so the core components. We talked about awareness in the present moment. Let's talk a little bit more about what that means. What is awareness in the present moment?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because psychological flexibility overlaps a lot with like mindfulness concepts. And in mindfulness, we know that awareness and presence, or here and now, are really important constructs or ideas, components. And psychological flexibility kind of encapsulates a lot of mindfulness. There's slight differences, but there's a lot of similarity. And so the awareness in the present moment is really, about there's multiple parts to it, but overall it's like it's hard for us to make a change and do better with things in life if we're not even aware, or we're not aware of the here and now.
Yeah.
And so, many people with anxieties are very worried about the future. Many people with traumas are very worried and anxious and kind of in the past with their thinking. And my experience in my practice has been that a lot of people come in thinking that they're pretty aware of what's going on and with their thoughts and feelings and stuff. But they learn eventually that, whoa, many of them will say, wow, I thought I was aware, and then I'm seeing that I wasn't, but I'm practicing and getting much better now. And it's because if you want to make change, right, it's important to know what's going on. I sometimes think about it as like a gauges on a dashboard of a car. And if you're going on this long road trip and you're not even aware of what the gas is doing or your speed or the temperature or whatever, it's a good chance it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
But when you check those and you're checking in and you're aware and it's in the here and now, then that goes a long way to making change and having a successful journey going forward, whether it's a literal road trip or just one's own personal life, real important.
Yeah. When I think about it, like just in a very sort of simplistic way of thinking about it, like you and I both do cognitive behavioral therapy, among other things too, but CBT is a big part of both your and my practice. And I know that like I'd be interested to hear your impression about this as a CBT therapist yourself. But for me, like when I'm talking with patients about trying to figure out what are the thoughts, the irrational thoughts or the thoughts that they're having that are causing their emotional experience, a lot of times patients have trouble with both parts of that. First, just the emotions themselves. Like there's like this like emotional smoothie, like a bunch of emotions that are all blended up in a smoothie. And I often hear people say like, I feel overwhelmed. I feel confused. And of course, overwhelm and confusion are not feelings. That's what you get when you get a bunch of feelings that are all thrown together in this smoothie. So part of the developing awareness is picking that apart and saying like, what feelings am I actually having? Is it a combination of anger and I'm feeling guilt and I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling shame? So picking apart the emotions is part of the awareness, and also the thoughts. Like, we talk about the thoughts in CBT being like automatic thoughts. Like we're not even aware that we're having them because thoughts happen at this electrochemical speed in our brains that we don't assign words or verbiage to until we take a step back and we analyze what was I actually thinking in that moment that connects to this feeling I'm having, and different thoughts connecting to the different feelings I'm having. So when I think of like just strictly talking in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy, I think of awareness as like really, really slowing down and figuring out what are the actual thoughts and feelings that I'm having. So I know I'm rambling there, but that's kind of my. What's your take on that?
Well, it makes perfect sense what you're saying. And by the way, I know we're talking sort of active ingredients, so I really like the smoothie metaphor.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're in line with food here.
Oh, yeah, right. I know we're planning on some hot pot
yeah, right,
later. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like breaking it apart so it's not this big stew, if you will, or smoothie of thoughts.
I know you're hungry.
Breaking it apart to increase that awareness is key. It just without even doing any change, simply increasing awareness of these things automatically tends to demystify it and make things a bit easier.
Yeah.
It's like one can go, oh, okay, I'm just experiencing some anxiety, rather than, oh, what's going on? I'm losing control and I'm freaked out about what's coming tomorrow. And, it's like, okay, wait a second. I'm just, this is some anxiety I'm experiencing, and it's happening because I just had that thought, and that thought happened because I saw that thing, and it kind of reminded me. And learning to kind of break that down and look at it more in that way is super helpful, and very much about the awareness like you just described,
Yeah. Well, and I think you bring up a good point, too. I think, like, when people feel a lot more sort of demystified of their own internal experience, they feel like they've got a lot more control. That seems to be very... I don't know, calming for people, or it just makes people feel like they've got more control of themselves when they understand it. And again, just bringing this back to psychological flexibility, I'm assuming like it's easier for you to be psychologically flexible if you have a better understanding and awareness of how you're thinking and feeling. Then you can kind of do something about it.
Yeah, right. And not only do something, but exactly. Yeah, kind of navigating, okay, what am I going to do? I have more options now rather than just habitually or mindlessly reacting because they're either unaware or they don't know what to do or they're not understanding what's going on. So develop that psychological flexibility. Yeah, awareness allows more space to either do something or not do something, or connect or not connect,
Yeah.
or put weight on things or not put weight on things. And a lot of times it just translates to more option to just be and not have to do anything, you know?
Yeah, right. I encourage listeners. I did an episode on the ABCs of cognitive therapy, and I do talk a little bit about this idea of identifying thoughts and feelings and whatnot. So I encourage you to go back and take a listen to that in my episodes, because it's a very helpful skill when you address it. So let's talk about openness and willingness to experience discomfort. Gosh, why would anybody want to experience discomfort?
Yeah, totally. That's a really, really great question. And I'm sure you see this all the time in your practice as well. Like pretty much everybody calls to come in to get help because they don't want the thoughts or the feelings that they're experiencing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of human tendency in some ways, you know, to just, I'm anxious or I'm sad or I'm having these certain kind of thoughts. And so, and they're just interfering with my life really big time, causing a lot of problems, taking up a lot of time. I can't attend to things in my life, my job, my family, my interests, whatever, because I'm just so bothered by all of this. So everybody comes in with that, and most people come in for that purpose. They want to get rid of this stuff, and they think that they're hiring me in my practice to help them get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're an auto mechanic.
Yeah, and the irony of it is that most people, or I don't know if it's an irony or a paradox, but most people are kind of disappointed when they learn after so many sessions that actually that would be sort of bad therapy to help people push away these thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
Like that is not going to be helpful, and is known not to be helpful. And so people sometimes are like, well, why am I coming here then? If what are we actually doing, you know? And so I explained it all very transparent, and really ultimately they start to see, and we talk about a lot, how going towards, being open and willing to have these thoughts and feelings while we're getting on with our life is really takes the power out of them eventually. Mm-hmm. I kind of think of it as like a real life bully that is trying to control the person, but sort of, the anxiety bully. And the more that they can not do what the anxiety bully wants and just get on with life, and invite the anxiety bully with them, the anxiety bully will sort of have this burst, extinction burst, or whatever we want to call it, an increase in behavior initially, and then
like acting out.
Yeah, trying to re-scare the person back into doing what it wants. Yeah. And which usually translates to whatever the short-term relief-seeking behavior is that people do. And if the person understands that with their growing awareness, and they recognize what's going on, because we do a lot of education around this, then they can just continue on and literally invite the bully with them, and be open and willing to say, hey, bully, come along. Thoughts and feelings, I get it, come along. And eventually the bully is not being rewarded by that.
Yeah.
Bully,
So let's kind of like look at it like a real life kind of situation here. So in this case, the bully might be like anxiety, for example, might be the bully.
Yeah.
And the idea is like, let's just say I have some social anxiety, like a lot of people do. And there's some kind of an event or something that I'd like to do, but I'm feeling anxious about going and doing it. Let's just say, because there's going to be new people there that I'll be meeting and talking with, and I feel very socially anxious in those kinds of situations. So that anxiety bully might be like, I might say like, I don't want to deal with that anxiety bully, so I'm gonna not go.
Right.
That would be escaping the discomfort.
Right.
I'll go, but I'll drink a lot of alcohol.
Avoiding.
Right. It's avoidance stuff. And so that's never going to lead to growth, right?
Right.
Never going to lead to growth.
Well, and not only won't lead to growth, it'll also, at minimum, maintain the anxiety.
Yeah.
And probably what the kind of growth it will lead to is more anxiety.
Right. And more avoidance.
Yeah, more avoidance. It just snowballs into a bigger feared thing, So yeah, totally. So
the idea then, like again, back to the psychological flexibility idea that if somebody's willing to approach that head on, to say, I am going to go do that thing that I was scared to do, and I know I'm going to feel uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And the only way for me to get more comfortable doing it is if I if I push myself to do it and feel discomfort in doing it, and that's where the growth is going to come.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And yes, gradually with practice over time, not just like, oh, my therapist said to go and do myself, or I read a book and I'll go and do it. So I'm doing it, but how come this isn't working? You know, I mean, that kind of thing. But yeah, exactly right. Like going towards it like that and genuinely welcoming. You know, some people will go towards things and it's sort of like versions of white knuckling. They go towards it and they're doing the thing, like in your example of going to the social event. Okay, I'm going to go towards it. And yet while they're there in their head, if they're not really aware particularly, they can have thoughts like, oh, this is so horrible. I can't wait till this is over. This is the worst thing ever. Oh my gosh. But see, I'm here, I'm doing it, I'm going, but, and then eventually they're not, you know, they're not learning these social things are more manageable than they think. And part of that reason for that is the bully is listening to that talk in their head. The bully will hear that and go, oh, they're going physically, but I still got control of them because they're so freaked out they can't wait till it's over. Mm-hmm. So it's really a practice thing to get to say, I'm going to go and I'm going to genuinely welcome whatever comes up. And I'm going to recognize with that growing awareness when I'm having those thoughts of, oh, I can't wait to get out of here. And instead just kind of realize those are just thoughts. No, I'm here. Come along, bully, come along. So it's the difference between sort of doing the exposure work and going towards things and having a more likely successful outcome over time with practice versus doing exposure work and going towards things and thinking they're open and willing, but inside they're kind of really still sending messages to the bully that, hey, I'm really bothered by this and you can still control me.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think maybe the way to summarize this one is the willingness and openness to feel the discomfort, to kind of move toward that, knowing that this isn't going to be easy for me. But it doesn't mean jumping in head first, like you Braveheart, you know, just
yeah.
You're maybe coming up with a strategic way, therapeutic way. If you're working with a therapist, if you're not working with a therapist, you're recognizing like this might not be easy for me, and I don't need to expect 100% success immediately. I might even have some failures or things don't work out so well for me, but I do know that I need to feel some discomfort in the process. It's the only way I'm going to be able to grow.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, with I've had many examples, but for example, sometimes if somebody's got panic and they're related to driving and they don't drive that far, I'll literally say, you know, and they do. They go around the car, open the passenger door, welcome the panic, anxiety bully into the passenger seat, put the seatbelt on them, close the door, walk back around, get in the driver's seat, get your box of Kleenex on your lap, and go for that long drive that we assigned or that we talked about and that they agreed to and chose to do, and cry and be upset and drive and cry and allow those thoughts and feelings to come. And then, you know, get your sandwich at the destination or whatever it was at the destination, then come on back. And almost always after 1, 2, 3, maybe a week's worth of doing that, people say, you know, it's actually way more doable than I thought. I'm really learning I don't have to be so afraid of these thoughts and feelings. I don't have to be so afraid of my experience. I can really be open and willing and let them come in the front door and be in my present moment with me while I get on with what I'm doing. In this case, is driving somewhere.
Yeah. Right. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think we should also just acknowledge that anxiety isn't the only bully, right?
Yeah, totally.
We're talking about anxiety because anxiety comes a lot, especially in your and my practice. But it could be any kind of emotional experience that's uncomfortable to deal with, but your
thoughts too.
Thoughts and feelings. The whole experience that if I know that this is uncomfortable, but I'm going to have to deal with it if I want to grow, whatever that might be, right?
I'm sure you see that in your practice a lot. Yeah.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, I think you could say that all of therapy is that to
very
some
much
degree
so.
or another.
Yeah.
I mean,
Versions
people are
of it.
coming because they're having uncomfortable thoughts and feelings of one sort or another, and they know they need to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's why there's the first step coming in the door.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Of course it's uncomfortable.
Which that concept in and of itself is, you know, that they come in, like we were saying, and wanting to get rid of these, but then in the process learn, the idea is not to get rid of these things. The idea is to learn how to get on with life while having these things. And just that's under the broad umbrella of cognitive therapy also, in like learning to look at things that are right there in front of you, but in a new way, a different way.
Right. That is the sort of the paradox there, right? That sometimes the least you are making the bigger deal about what it is you're feeling and thinking, the less it bothers you, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, okay. Let's talk about valued engagement.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, there's different ideas for it. Different words for it. But the general idea, right, is like not having, you know, not. Basically, just getting on with life. basically. People have goals, people have values. Sometimes they don't know their goals that much, or they don't quite know their values, but that becomes more clear with increased awareness. And, a lot of people know what their goals and values are. I want to be the best parent I can be, or I want to be, that's kind of vague actually, but I want to, certain milestones and goals and values. And it's like getting on with those things, even in the face of having the uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. If we look at anxieties, if we look at a lot of times depression, if we look at OCD, like if we take OCD for an example, people have all these obsessive thoughts, and then they have all these compulsions, these behaviors to try to get relief from the thoughts, sort of parts 1 and part 2. But there's a third part, and the third part is all the disruption it causes in their life because of all this stuff. And people always think it's like the obsessions that is causing the problem in their life, thinking their hands are dirty or thinking they're going to stab somebody or whatever. And they always think it's that. So they do the compulsion to get relief from that. But the real problem is really the disruption that it causes in their life by doing their compulsion. And so when we apply valued engagement kind of concepts in training, they learn that it's really okay to get on with whatever I'm doing in life while having these thoughts and not having to go for the short-term relief. And they start to become more productive and get more done, and they start to be empowered and realize, these are uncomfortable thoughts and feelings, especially in the beginning. But I'm actually heading towards what I want. I get my kids to school in time, and then I get to my job, and rather than I got to wake up at 3:30 in the morning so that I can use 5 hours to get out of the house because I have OCD. And
another thing that so with the example that you're just giving, something that just struck my mind about values is like, let's just to bring it back to substance use for a moment. There's something like an OCD behavior I'm doing, an anxiety that I have. And to cope with it, I drink or I self-medicate or I do something like that. And let's just say you have a core value about living a healthy lifestyle, or you don't want to model substance using to your kids or whatnot. That would be going against your values as a person about what's important to you. And so you might really be looking at like understanding these are my values and I want to live according to my values, and having an awareness of that and trying to act on that would be another component of the psychological flexibility.
Yeah, I'm aware of these. Yeah, exactly right. I'm aware of these values. That's meaningful. It's important to me, and I'm developing an awareness of what's going on with all this within me, and I'm developing that willingness, that openness to experiencing the unpleasantness that comes with a lot of this stuff. And I'm not going to pause my journey towards my goals or values in order to close the door on these mental and emotional experiences. I'm open and willing, and it's scary, and it might take me some practice, but that's really what that's about.
Yeah. Okay. So the idea is that trying to employ these 3 different components of psychological flexibility makes you psychologically more flexible.
Yeah.
And presumably you will improve mental and emotional health and well-being and do better in therapy if you're open to these, and outside of therapy live a more meaningful and productive, happy life for yourself. And I know we have a couple of takeaways here in terms of how a person might incorporate this into their day-to-day life.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You mean once they have the skill, or how to kind of practice?
How to practice the skill? Yeah.
I think the easiest, most efficient, best way to practice the skill of psychological flexibility, which largely overlaps with mindfulness, is to load one of the mindfulness apps. There's numerous ones on, on your phone if you have a smartphone. Load one of those and just listen to a little short one, 6 minutes to 15 minutes every day. There's Mindfulness Coach, there's Headspace, there's UCLA Mindful, which comes out of the school UCLA. They have a mindfulness department. They've got a good one also. Most of them are free, but some are paid. But it's actually really good to mix them up, because there's sort of sometimes different words that are used for these concepts. So if one listens to different apps or different words that are being used, it kind of helps to cross-train better and really understand the concept that underlies the more shallow word aspect. I wouldn't say necessarily any meditation app. There's lots and lots of good kinds of meditations out there, but specifically a mindfulness meditation app, a little bit every day goes a super long way, and it's really easy. And you don't do it while you're driving or while you're cooking or while you're at work or anything. Just literally sit on the couch, sit on a chair, close your eyes for a bit, put the earbuds in, and just listen. And they just guide you right through it. It almost does the work for you. You don't even have to do like anything. And it's not like you would do it to like just when you're stressed to as an acute fire extinguisher kind of tool to feel better immediately. It would be more like a day in and day out kind of practice to gradually build the skill. And then, several months later, it's like, wow, I think I'm really getting this, and I'm noticing some change in my life with how I'm managing things. I think that's really one of the best ways, if not the best way, to get better at all this.
Yeah. So there's very helpful apps out there. You mentioned Headspace, Mindfulness Coach, right?
Yeah.
And there's a UCLA Mindful Awareness Research Center has some resources. Apps aside for a moment, things that I've done with my patients, and I don't know if this has been helpful for you, but like I ask people to just literally like carve out time during the day to take a step back and ask yourself, what am I thinking and feeling right now? Yeah. And I have some people who like have reminders going off on their phone or their watch, just saying to stop, take a break. What am I thinking and feeling right now?
Great idea.
Take a couple of minutes to do that. Just build some awareness to thoughts and feelings. And it's not easy. Actually, it seems like it should be easy, but it's not easy when you're starting to do it. So don't get discouraged, but just really try to pay attention. If I'm not sure what I'm feeling, it's possible that I'm feeling more than one feeling. What could they be? And there's usually a thought or thoughts that go with each one of the feelings. So I like that, like kind of like just a kind of practical thing.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Journaling also is a good way to do that.
Yeah, totally. The one about taking a step back and like noticing what your thoughts and feelings, and that's really great. And I've noticed some clients have hard time even wondering that. So sometimes what I do is just go even more like just physical sensations. Take a step back and just notice my arm, my elbow resting on the arm of the chair. What is that like? Notice the nod of my head right now. And what is that like in my neck? Or notice the pressure of my feet on the floor, or sort of like, noticing just even physical sensations. I find they're a lot times easier for people than going right to thoughts and feelings. And so and presumably you see that sometimes too, and so it kind of depends on the person, but it's a fine place to start, I think, and then as they get better, they can go to thoughts and feelings, or maybe some people are already getting a little bit more advanced with thoughts and feelings in that regard and noticing it, but super great idea. Yeah, right. Totally. Yeah.
Paying attention to more somatically what's going on to feelings inside of the body.
There's the wording, paying attention, noticing, observing, watching.
Yeah. And then around values, like is it helpful for people to take a step back sometimes and take stock of what values are important to them and ask themselves, is what's going on with me in alignment with that? Like actually listing them and thinking through them. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, even as psychologists, like I find don't you find for yourself that like we're really aware of this stuff, but even then we're prone also to sort of like routine and automaticity, automatic habits, kind of just getting on that track and doing what we do. And it really is important for anybody in the world, even if they're really practiced, to go, okay, I'm going to bring some awareness and slow this down and really look at what I'm doing. Like, it's sort of midday and I'm hungry, and that just automatically tells me hot pot, but maybe.
Hot pot is the go-to here. Right. Yeah. Well, so the value would be making sure you're being kind to your body, and you're you're eating when you're hungry, and you're sleeping when you're not overdoing it. And if your values are to eat really good food for lunch or whatever it might be.
Yeah. I value friendship.
Yes.
I value interesting engagement. And that's what we're doing. And I'm also aware while we're doing this that I'm like about a 6 out of 10 hungry, maybe even a 7. And that's going to be in a bit, but that's perfectly fine. And I'm choosing to be open and willing to experiencing the hunger while I head towards this thing that we're doing right now in this friendly conversation, because I enjoy it. I like it. I value it. It's stimulating for my brain. Hopefully it can help some other people out there, even if one person, to at least think about how this goes. And it's just, and I value your friendship, and it's fun to do this stuff. So, I mean, it's like
Yeah.
an example of what we're talking about, you know?
Yeah, likewise, Tyler. Yeah, so great. Psychological flexibility. So I think we can kind of wrap it up. This has been a really fun
Yeah.
and exciting conversation about
Yeah.
a very important topic. I hope if you're listening to this podcast, you take a step back and really digest and think about this and ask yourself, how is this going for me in my life? How aware am I of internally how I'm thinking and feeling about things and being mindful of that? And if you're not, pay attention. Find other ways to pay attention. Think about what your core values are and whether what you're doing is in alignment and consistent with what's important to you. And also the discomfort. Sorry, folks, it's not easy. I know that just as well as, anybody else, as I'm sure Tyler does. But, so they say no pain, no gain. And unfortunately, that is true with growth in life. Taking risks, trying things that are uncomfortable. You got to do it. But do it in a measured way. You don't need to do it in a way that throws you in with the wolves or the lions. Do it in a way that you're titrating it and trying new things, taking risks, and then being able to take a step back and ask yourself each time, how did that go? Did it go well for me? Did it not go well for me? What can I learn from this? How can I approach it from a different angle? But you have to be willing to do it. That's part of doing the work of growing. Yeah?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Tyler, it's been great to see you.
Thank you.
And look forward to having you on our next discussion, which I believe we're going to talk about hindsight bias.
Great.
Which
Yeah,
is, I know, a
sounds
topic
good.
that you love and I do too. And so I look forward to having that discussion in the near future.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you for listening to Mind Tricks Radio. I hope you have enjoyed the program. For more information about Mind Tricks, please go to my website, www.waikikihealth.com. Please be sure to subscribe to Mind Tricks podcast and accompanying blog to be notified of new episodes of Mind Tricks. Please be sure to follow Mind Tricks on Facebook by following and liking posts by myself, your host, Dr. Aaron Kaplan.